Hello, this is Warlord. Today we're going to take a look at the BuildingGen plugin, the procedural building generator for iClone. And in order to keep this as simple as possible, we're going to build our own props or our own little building template from primitive. We're going to go into scaling and some things like that. I'm going to show you some of the mistakes that are easy to make. So let's go ahead and get started. One way we can learn to use primitives to create our own building parts. So what I've got my grid turned on, and what I'm going to do is go to a 2x2 setup. And we're not going to be exact. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. And now we've got our floor basically set up. We're not going to reset the transformation or anything like that. We're just going to go ahead and save. Next, I'm going to go into the props folder and I'm going to pull out the wall. Going to resize it. Again, just eyeballing it, but you do want this to go to the edge or maybe a little over. By that I mean on the floor. And if you want exact scale, you can always put a character here to see what scale you need. Now I'm just changing colors so we can see the difference in them. Okay, now we have our wall. If you have the toolbar, you can go to create package there, or we can go to the BuildingGen plugin and create package. And that will open this window, which I'm going to expand a bit. Now we can't just immediately drag and drop in. We have to put in a little bit of information first. So let's go ahead and name it. And I'm going to leave this at 3, even though that's wrong, because I want to show you what happened if you start off wrong. And it's easy to correct. I'm going to go into a new style. Don't know what styles I want yet. I'm just going to call the first one default. Now we can start dragging and dropping our other stuff in, our wall and our floor. So we'll go ahead here and bring in our floor and make sure you change it to floor. We want it to go on every place but a corner. We're not going to mess with corners on this. Now we're going to drag in the wall and make sure you check that it goes on both other floors, the middle floor and the top level. Now we're ready to go ahead and save. And what this will do will tell us if we've got this far correctly, if we're sized right. And of course, we're going to have an error the first time we run it because I did not set the initial size right. But I wanted you to see what that looks like. So let's go ahead and generate it. And now you'll see how spread out it is. That's because we have basically somewhere around a 2x2 prop trying to go into a 3x3 grid. So all we have to do to correct that is go back into our package and make sure we set the proper size. So I'm going back to 2.0. If you got to remember though, we just eyeball this. We didn't go exacts. So this may or may not work. We may have to go a little more. Let's go ahead and build it. And we're getting better, but we're not quite there. We still got too much gap, which means the floor is going to have gap. So let's go back again. And I'm going to go to 1.8 because I know from having tried this before that that's what it needs to be. I won't drag you going through all the others. We're going to save it. And now let's try it again and see how it looks. Okay. Now we've got that part set. Your walls and your floors are working. The top wall is very tall for a simple reason. We're not using a trim wall, which is usually shorter. So let's go ahead and correct that. Might as well find out now that it's not that hard. I know it makes it look like there's not a top floor, but you'll see after we correct it here in a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the existing wall, and I'm just going to shrink it down. Again, I'm just going to eyeball it. And this will become our trim wall for our top floor. Change colors so we can easily see what difference we've made. Now we need to go over and save it. I'm having to rock back and forth between these locations because I saved my stuff on a custom location. But the building package is in the default location. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to add the trim floor. And make sure you uncheck first floor and that you uncheck top level on the wall, or you'll have them competing for each other. You'll have a mixture of them, and I'll show you that. So we'll go ahead and get this saved. Get back over to our package, and let's see what we've done. Okay, now you can see the regular wall versus the trim wall. Now let's take a look at what happens if we forgot to uncheck those two walls. I'm going to save this. And it's very easy to forget to check a wall or uncheck a wall. All right, let's go ahead and build it. And that's not quite what we had in mind, is it? And that's because you have the short wall, the trim wall, and the regular wall mixed together on the floors because we did not uncheck it. So it's actually doing what we told it to do. So let's go back and correct that, put it back like it was, uncheck, uncheck, and just make sure it's only checked on the top level for the wall trim. Now let's go ahead and build it. And we're back to where we were. As you can see, it wasn't that hard to go ahead and make a correction here. Now we need a door, but we need to remember that a door is also part of a wall. So I'm going to go back and load in the wall so I have something for size. And I'm going to use my existing trim wall to become my door. And you'll see what I mean here in a minute. I'm just going to widen it out where it sticks out. Scale it up. Scale it in a little. Now, if you had steps going with it, you would want to raise it up a little. But we'll just go ahead and set this like this. And now you can see this is our door. And something we have to do is we have to attach that green one to the yellow one so that it will save out. And I'm going to change it to door. Save it. And now we've got a door we can use. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of both of those because we can reload them time as a prop. All right, we're going to drag our door in. Be sure you change it to door and set it for the first floor if that's the only floor you want it on. Then we go ahead and save. Now let's go back to our package and run it again. We'll go ahead and build. And as you can see, we now have a door. Again, this was not that difficult. Now this gives me an opportunity to show you something else. Let's say we wanted to go ahead and just change the color on that door. I'm going to load it. And I'm just going to, as usual, select it, go into texture, and just change the color. Now, as far as doing it for this part, it's not that difficult. All we have to do now is make sure we select the wall and save it out as the door, because remember the door is attached to the wall. But now here's where it can get interesting with the plugin. You've got to remember there's a cache. So I'm going to go ahead and build this, but it's got the old color. So with the building selected under the BuildingGen menu, or excuse me, side panel, go ahead and clear the cache and replace it or rebuild it. So if something's not working and you know you've got it right, clear your cache. Now we need a window. So let's go back, load up our door prop to use as a starting point again. And let's just resize the door part of it to a window, or what you might think looks like a window. Because you can do this same thing with an actual window and door prop. I'm just doing it with primitives so you can easily see how it works. I'm going to come in here and change the color so we can easily spot the difference, even though it's sized differently. Then select the wall and save it out as a window because, of course, it's attached to that wall. Now we're ready to drag the window in, set it as a window, and then tell it what floors we want to use it on. And we can save. Go back over to our package. And let's rebuild it. And there you can see we have windows. So now we've got windows, door, wall, trim walls, and floor, all made out of primitive. And now let's get to our pillars. This is where I will use the create primitive and the box that comes from the top menu. The corners are rounded on this box, and it will just make it easier for us to tell what we're doing. Now you notice I'm going to go ahead and build a building so I can see where to put this pillar and what size to make it, how to scale it. Now also, in order to be able to tell where each floor is, I'm going to come into the building I just built and turn off one of the floors so I can get a better size. This way I can tell how to fit it to the floor size or the level size. So now we'll save that out as a pillar. And that's all there is to that. Let's go ahead and add our pillar. Change it to a pillar. Tell it what level you want it on. I'm going to save it out. And now we'll give it a test. Now you can see we have everything but the short pillar for the top. And that's not going to be that difficult to do. What I'm doing here is I'm going to resize. I just duplicated one of those pillars, and I'm going to, I didn't duplicate it, I'm sorry, I just selected it, the original one, and I'm moving it up, sizing it to what I want it to be, and then putting it right back down to 0. And we're going to save it out as a short pillar to use on the top level, just like we did our trim wall. And so we'll get this saved, pillar short. And let's see what happens when we add it. Be sure you change it to pillar. Be sure you select only the top and deselect the first floor, which is always selected by default. Same story as before. You'll get unexpected results if you don't check and uncheck the right box. Now let's go see what we've got. Okay. There we have it. The two different size pillars. We've got windows. We've got the doors. Now let's take a look at style. We're going to use this original default style to build off of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new style. So we'll just call it no windows. Now, this gives us another place to put stuff, but we can't drag and drop in what's already in there. We have to come back and copy and paste from our very first entry. So we'll come back to default, and I want to select them all. And make sure you roll down and get them all. Copy it. Let's go into no windows there and paste. Now let's remove the window by deleting it. And now we've got our second style set. We can go ahead and save it. Don't have to worry about saving over the other one because this is just another style in there. And if you've not been sure what styles are, this will hopefully open your eyes on that. So you see here now we have default and we have no window. So now we have both of them in there. And here is like no window. Or we can go back and put in window. Now, like no windows could be something like a fortress or a warehouse, something like that. We can rotate our door or randomize our door. Now let's make another style. And this time we'll have no windows on the first floor. So I'm just going to call this first floor. I keep these short so I can see what they are when I'm looking at it in the packager. Now we've still got our clipboard full, so I'm just going to paste in there, and I'm going to uncheck the first floor on the window, and then we're going to save. Now we'll go back and check again. There you can see we have the three styles in there. And now we have no windows on the first floor. Now I want to show you something you might run into. This custom asset, this wall looks fine. It came from SketchUp. It looks like it's all right. When you save it, it looks like it's all right. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put it, it's in the packager. And I'm not going to put in any other floors or walls, so we're going to get an error. But I'm going to show you why I'm doing it this way. So what I'm going to do is go back over to the packager. And I'm going to build it. And you see we got our errors. Don't worry about that. But you'll notice that the walls are oriented more like floors. They're 90 degrees off. So this is where you do have to actually reset the transform on this prompt. So you'll notice now it says 0 over there under rotate. We reset transform and we have a minus 90 degree. Now let's go ahead and save that out, override it. And then let's go check it and see if it worked. Now remember, we're going to get some errors because we don't have everything in there that we need. Now, why didn't this work? Your cache. Rebuild it, clear your cache, replace it, and now you have the wall sitting in the right way. So if it ever comes down to where for some reason you cannot get it oriented right, just go ahead and change it in iClone and resave the prop itself. I hope this helped you to understand how the plugin works. As you can see, by creating our own with primitives, it's not that difficult. It doesn't have to be an exact. You can just go in there and eyeball it, and you can go back and make changes as you need to, either from the package or from the props. There's really not that much to it. Now, I wasn't able to demonstrate a lot on styles because we were using such a basic template. But if you had 2 or 3 different kinds of windows, a couple of different kinds of doors, things like that, different exteriors, then you can see where styles is going to be a pretty helpful tool. Anyway, I hope this helps.